And they attacked him so viciously. If you think you have it tough, sometimes you see a brother and you're like, what's wrong, bro? What happened to your beard? What happened? And he's like, man, I was walking in school and somebody called me a name. Oh no, I was in another city and there was a very, mashallah, active dawah, street dawah system there. And I went there again and I stopped. And I told them, what happened? And they said, we were there and somebody came and yelled at us. I said, wait, that's it? And you gave up? Bro, I've been stabbed, I've been hit, I've been attacked, like I'm still at it. Like, what do you mean? Somebody just yelled at you, you just stopped? Like, that's it? Where's your rujula? What is your manliness? Gotta step up. Abu Dharr radiallahu is giving da'wah in Mecca and he gets attacked so harshly from every side that his face is bleeding, in the back of his face, in the front of his face, it's all bloody. He passes out and they're still attacking him, a group of them from every side, until he was at the point of death. At a point that he was about to be killed. And Abbas, radiallahu anhu, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and at this point Abbas is not Muslim. But he has that soft spot for Islam. Because he's the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he throws his body on top of Abu Dharr and he protects it. And he tells the Quraysh, what are you doing? You know this man is from Banu Ghifar. And your caravans go by. Now interestingly, Banu Ghifar would attack the caravans. Either they would tax them, meaning they would tell them, yo, give up them taxes. Or if they didn't, then they would just rob them. And that was their main source. So Abbas radiallahu tells the Quraysh that, look, you get a pass right now. What does that mean? The Quraysh, because they used to be the people who kept the Kaaba and all the statues and all the idols there, the people would respect them because people would want to come to Mecca to do tawaf. They would have to come there to worship their idols. So because of that, they wouldn't attack them. Because they attacked them, then maybe the Quraysh wouldn't let them come. So the Quraysh, they would get a pass. Their caravans wouldn't get attacked. So Abbas tells them, look, if you kill a man from Banu Ghifar, then they won't give you that pass anymore. They'll start attacking your caravans, your money. See, the kuffar also, they understand. They understand that money. They love that money. They love that wealth. They love that dunya. They're not about principles. It's all about, we had a brother who was giving da'wah. He called me. So I went, and this is at Balboa Park in San Diego recently. So me and him were giving da'wah together. And we had a guy come up to us. And he was a Zionist. I want to speak about it, man, relax. It's me that gets cancelled, not you guys. So he's a Zionist. He said, I'm from God chose me and I'm chosen people and God gave us this land and this was given to us. So I started talking to him about Islam and then he's like, I'm an atheist. What? You believe in God? I don't believe in God. There's no God. But who gave you the land? God gave you the land. Hey, how does that work? If you don't believe in God, who chose you? If you don't believe in God, how do you make a claim God gave you this land? And the videos online, you can see them. Yeah. So, what's it really about? It's not about God, it's about money. It's about control. It's about land. And when you hurt that money, that boycott hits, oh man, you start getting worried. Right? So here, when the Quraysh was reminded that, look, this can affect your trade and your wealth, then they backed up. See, it wasn't about principle, right? Then they backed up. Now Abu Dharr is at the point that he's been beaten, physically bloodied, to the point of almost being killed. And he goes back to the Sahaba, and they're tending to his cuts and his wounds. What does he do the next day? What's he do? Go home, cry, be like, forget it, I quit. Next day, he's at it again. Goes up, Ya Ma'ashar Quraysh, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Allah Akbar. These were rijal, these were men, these were a qudwa, an example for us to look up to. They were firm. They weren't like, oh, I got made fun of, so I'm going to go home and cry, sit in therapy and shave my beard and change my name and take off the hijab and take off the niqab and, oh, it's too much, I can't do it, we're in America, we need to change Islam. No. Stand on game. Stand on tawheed. Firm. What happens the next day? He gets attacked again. Again, from every side. People attacking him, people hitting him, not like a one-on-one standoff fight. No, from every side. He dropped, fell, they're kicking him. He's on the ground, he's unconscious. Abbas radiallahu saves him again. Point close to death. What happens the third day? Same thing again. Go out there. Ya Ma'ashar al-Quraysh, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. He's attacked a third time, beaten. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells him, look, it's not this time yet. You know, many of the ulama, they write about Abu Dharr al-Ghifari that he was from the first 7th or 8th or 10th people, early Muslims. And he's one of the first to openly give da'wah. At a time that the Muslims were not openly giving da'wah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, go back to your people, Banu Ghifar, and give them da'wah. And he took to that. And that's a very important thing, especially for our brothers here that are reverts. When you become Muslim, I know it might be difficult. Trust me, like we deal with this, right? Family pressures, cultural pressures, family maybe Christians or Catholics or Jews or atheists or Hindus or this or that. But understand that Allah has chosen you and given you a responsibility to be a means of your family and your friends and your culture and your people to learn about Islam. So with that, radiallahu anhu, he went back to his people and he started to call them towards Tawheed. So Abu Dharr radiallahu anhu, when he went back, he saw his family, he said, I don't want to talk to you guys. They're like, what happened? They loved him. He said, no, I'm a Muslim. They're like, what's a Muslim? And he gave them da'wah. And his wife, and his parents, and his close family, he started giving them da'wah. And he stayed with Banu Ghifar, giving them da'wah for years, patiently, until Hijrah happened, Badr happened, and he's still there giving them da'wah. Until a time when the people of Mecca, they heard that an entire army was going. And when they wanted to find out what's going on, because there wasn't a war, they heard that Banu Ghifar came to Medina and the entire Qabila became Muslim. Allahu Akbar, from one person. You know, till today, when I go to Saudi, I meet people that their lineage and their Qaba'il go back to Banu Ghifar. You know, Banu Ghifar were from Banu Qinana. They were, if you look at the tribal, it goes up. And from them, till today, there are scholars, there are huffaz, there are qurra, there are du'at, there are those building masajid, there are those that are doing khairat, giving sadaqah. I'm thinking about this. All of that reward goes in the mizan of who? Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu. So my respected brothers and sisters in Islam, this is a reminder for myself. Alhamdulillah, Sheikh Ibrahim is here. So when the water comes, the time breaks, we're going to wait for him now, inshallah, to come up here. But, as I said, you know, you guys are here in Chicago. Right? I'm not here, I'm in San Diego. Right? Yesterday, one day, we went out and 16 people became Muslim. One in the masjid, 15 out there in Oblak. Today we went out downtown, we had 6 people become Muslim, right? So that means in 2 days, where's your math majors? How many people became Muslim? Huh? 22? Good. I want to check that. 22 people. Imagine that. If 22 people are saved from the hellfire, may Allah give them istiqamah, may Allah make them steadfast on it, right? How great is that? Imagine if you guys were doing that every weekend. Imagine if every weekend, let's just say 5 or 10 people were becoming Muslim. Wallahi, it would change the face of this country. The future is ours, no doubt. All them haters can hate all they want. They can get angry, they can do whatever, they can try to do Muslim bans and this and that. It's not in their hands. It's the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When one person becomes Muslim, that's a whole generation. They get married, their children get married, their children's children. Now what's important is for us as a community to embrace them, to give them a place where they can learn, to follow up with them, to support them. And this is a very important thing. Many people, they get caught up in sinful behavior. They get caught up sometimes by choice and sometimes not by choice. Like I said in Oblak, we're talking to some people that it wasn't like they went to go live there, but they were born there, they were raised there, their families were caught up in these things. And they were looking for a way out, and when they heard about Islam, they were quick to take it. You know, subhanAllah, when we first got there were 3 young guys. And I mean, I'm going to be straight with you guys. Like this is not, you know, I don't believe in sugarcoating things, right? They were selling drugs. And we started speaking to them. And one of them, as I was speaking to him, as he was saying that yes, Islam makes sense, as I was, at the point where he was about to take his shahada, he takes out some papers, he starts putting weed, he starts rolling it up. It's the reality, bro. You gotta deal with the world that we live in. And inshallah, the video will be on the channel on the One Message Foundation soon. Inshallah, you'll see it. And as I told him, look, you know, brother, Allah made this haram. When you become Muslim, you got to give these things up. He started speaking to the joint. He said, soon we're going to have to say goodbye. You know? So, it takes time and support. We have to be there for them. You know, somebody gets out of prison. Maybe they made tawbah, maybe they became Muslim in prison, or they were Muslim and they got caught up in the wrong environment. But when they get out, they need us to help them get jobs. They need us to help them be a part of the community, not to look down on them, not to like ostracize them, not, you know, maybe they don't know about Islam as much as they should, to help them get classes, to help them get involved, to connect them with the ulama, to get them a al-biyah salihah, a good environment, to help them maybe get their GED, get back to school, get their education, you know, whatever we can do, maybe help them get housing, so that they can then live productive lives. We have to be there. That's our responsibility. You know, these people that became Muslim, now it's upon us to support them. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when they accepted Islam, the other Sahaba that were Muslim, they would then bring them into their households, into their families, get them married, get them jobs, get them to, you know, subhanAllah, when you look at the people who made hijrah, and the people that gave them nusrah, the muhajirin and the Ansar, how beautiful of a relationship was that. The people that made hijrah didn't take advantage of it. Abdurrahman and Auf radiallahu anhu, when the Ansari told him, look, half of everything I have is yours, half of my property is yours, I have more than one wife, I will divorce one, you marry her. And, I mean, this is how far they went in making ikram or you know, taking care of their muhajirun, the people who made hijrah. Abdurrahman told them, no, just show me where is the market. I'll make my own living. Like they had that ghira, they had that izzah. They weren't out looking for a handout. But the Ansar, they were such that they would take them as physical brothers. At a time they would inherit from each other, but later that was mansukh. Right? So as Muslims, this is how we have to be. When somebody becomes Muslim or a Muslim makes tawbah and comes to the masjid, we need to then support them. We need to be a family, we need to be together so we can improve society. You know, that banditry, that robbing, that danger of Banu Ghifar, how did it stop? It's from Islam. To a point where people would then caravans would travel and they would have no fear because of Islam. You know, people talk about gun crimes. I'm gonna end, I swear, soon. You know? I just want to make a point. You know, people talk about gun crimes and gun laws and guns and guns and guns and guns, you know? You know how many children are murdered under the name of abortion every year in America? Any idea? Some of the statistics say, because a lot of it happens illegally and under the table and all that kind of stuff, right? Literally under that. Some of the statistics say 900,000 a year. Almost 1 million children are killed under the name of abortion every year. Think about that. And if you think that's bad, and India is worse. In India, so many female fetuses are aborted that now there are villages that for the last 10 years, they haven't had a single female birth. They check the gender, if it's a girl, they abort it. Hindus. Some of them, even after the child is born, they drown the little fetus in milk. I don't know why milk, but maybe it's cow milk or something. Yeah. You know, the Arab used to do that. The Arab of Jahiliyyah, they used to kill their daughters. How did it stop? Not through women's rights, not through the UN, not through some human rights commission. No. You know, it stopped with Islam. The Arab used to oppress the weak with riba. How did that stop? Through Islam. The Arabs were racist. Oh boy, were they racist. If you've ever read the ash'ar or the poems of Jahiliyyah, man, you will forget rap battles. I'm not kidding. If you study like Sheikh ibn Aqil, Alfiyah ibn Malik, and he gives abiyat from the Jahiliyyah and so on, you know, they used to make fun of each other's mothers. In the format of the poems of Jahiliyyah, they used to have a format. They used to praise their tribe and then dispraise the other tribe and then talk about women and talk about like they had a format. And that's when the Quran was read, they were like, whoa, this doesn't follow our format. No poet could have written this. Right? They realized that it wasn't something that a poet made up. But some of the insult, you know, your mama jokes, man, they took it to a different level. Right? All of that foolishness, all of that jahiliyyah, all of that ignorance was solved with what? Islam. To a point that in a few years, 23 years, it came to a point where there was no difference between Bilal al-Habashi and the leaders of the Quraysh. They were brothers. Where no fetus was being aborted. Where no riba was being charged. Where people were no longer robbing. Where they were conquering the world. Defeating the superpowers. Why? Because of Iman. And that is where we have to go back to the way of the Salaf al-Salih. That is the way of success. We have to stand up in America with no fear and say, look, people of America, we're here and we want good for America. We want to be productive citizens of this country. We want to stop the dhulm that is going on in America. The churches that are robbing you blind. Those pastors and priests that are molesting your children. Those those riba banks run by those whose kufis have shrunk and they don't buy new ones. Those riba banks that are making this homeless population bubble, we can fix it. We can fix it. We have the answers in Islam. We call you to La ilaha illallah. That's our job. And we hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us tawfiq and ability to be from those that will take this banner of La ilaha illallah and this da'wah to every corner of the world and every corner of this country and every city, inshallah ta'ala. And I would like to request Sheikh Ibrahim, come, inshallah. The warm-up is done. The main course is here. Before the Sheikh begins, I just want to say one thing before I get off the stage or the table. Wallahi, I travel a lot and I go to different cities. And I'm not going to introduce the Sheikh with, there's no introduction needed, right? I'm just going to say this, right? That a lot of cities, the big issue that we have is a lack of the people of knowledge. And when you have somebody that Allah has blessed, even though He doesn't want me to say this, but it's His haqq, please take advantage of it. Benefit from him, take that knowledge. With the death of the ulama, the knowledge is going to be taken away. I remember the days of Sheikh ibn Baz and Sheikh ibn Uthman and Sheikh Albani, and in those days I wish we had taken more advantage of them. When they passed away, wallahi, nobody has taken that place. And we have ulama, but not at that level. And every generation will get like that. So we ask Allah to allow us to benefit from the people, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen, Nabina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First, you guys, I don't want you to be deprived from what you hear from Sheikh Uthman. He's here only for tonight in this trip, inshallah. We should bring him more often, inshallah. But I'm here all the time, so that's why I'm just going to speak for a few minutes, inshallah. Then we'll continue, inshallah, after Maghrib also with the talk and the questions. Take advantage, inshallah ta'ala, with his presence. But if there is 2 points that I want to remind myself and everyone, which is also something that you heard in the talk, something that is unique to the haqq, something that is unique to the truth, that it's not only about the physical means. The physical means, it's a must, but it's the weakest thing ever when it comes to the haqq. The most important thing for the haqq is for the person to be upon the haqq and to hold fast to it. And then the religious means, or the means that get stated in the wahy, this is what aids the believers. And the core of it, and the foundation of it, and the root of it is in the hearts of each and every one of us, where only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So we can deceive one another with the physical means. We can be physically present in one place, making salah, for example, or doing something of good deeds. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in our hearts. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees in our hearts the importance of this deen, that this is what drives us all to do what is good, the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why we have to learn it and to be upon it, and how we abhor shirk, associating partners with Allah. It's the worst thing that can ever happen, and a person has this in his heart. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees in our hearts that we prefer the hereafter over this life, that this life is nothing but a mean, and this is the core of all diseases of the hearts, is the attachment, at-ta'alluq bid-dunya, to hold fast to this life, to be attached to this worldly life. And unless the people of the truth, their hearts are fully attached to the hereafter, their actions are done sincerely for the sake of Allah, the tawheed of Allah, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone in the hereafter, and with their hearts, I'm saying with their hearts, turning away from this worldly life and looking forward and attached to the hereafter. And this is really the zuhd that people get to misunderstand it. They think zuhd is to wear special clothing or to eat special food. There's no such a thing. ليس الزهد بأكل الغليظ ولا بلبس العباء كما قال سفيان الثوري رحمه الله. It's not by wearing the rugged clothes and to eat harsh food. And this is not what zuhd is. Zuhd is in the heart. It's a deed done by the heart. And it's basically turning from something to something else. You turn from something because you're not interested in it with your heart to something that is where your interest is. So turning with the heart from the dunya, from the materialistic things in this life, with the heart. That means this is not the thing. You eat, we drink, we have money, we take means, you go to school, you go to work, all of that, you go to the bathroom, it's a must. But your heart is not attached to the bathroom. Right? You have a problem if your heart is attached so much you love being in the bathroom, there's an issue here. So the same thing, so you choose to turn from this to the everlasting life, to the hereafter. So then things will fall into its place as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us. So this is the first point. The second point is, since we're talking about the haqq and the da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why many people they turn away from the haqq? What are some of the reasons that people would turn away from the truth and would choose falsehood? Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentioned that in 6 major reasons, and I would like to share with everyone this in a few minutes, inshallah. Then we continue, inshallah ta'ala, with Sheikh Uthman, inshallah. Which basically al-asbab al-mani'a min qabul haqq. The means that deprives people from accepting the haqq, whether you're giving da'wah to someone, whether it's the absolute haqq from kufr to al-iman, or the details of al-haqq. Someone that is a Muslim, but he's turning away from something that is the truth, and he's adopting something of falsehood. The reasons are the same. That's why it can be major or minor according whether a person is a Muslim or a non-Muslim, but the disease or the seeds of it is the same. One of which is something that is very important to understand is al-jahl, having the ignorance of the haqq. When a person doesn't know something, which is something stated in the Quran. One of the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, in human beings, to understand the human beings. You know what Uthman will give you better understanding than this. When you're giving da'wah to someone, sometimes you get deceived by what they say. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informed us of what's in their hearts, which we don't have this capacity. We don't have the power to understand what's in the hearts of someone. We only take the apparent things that they show and what they say. But the Quran makes the matter easy for the people, those who are calling to the haqq. Why? Because if someone is ignorant about something, man jahila shay'an ada. Whoever is ignorant about something, he would show enmity towards it. This is how things are. This is how human beings are. They don't know something, so that prepare yourself that they would show enmity just because they're ignorant about it. So one of the clear and the important ways, and it's a duty upon us, is to remove the ignorance about Islam. Is for people to understand what Islam is, with our speech and actions, of course, right? So, al-ilm, the knowledge of the deen of Allah. Whether it's to us as Muslims, and every Muslim has an obligatory knowledge that he has to learn, matters of aqidah, matters of fiqh, even the things that would strengthen his iman, matters of the heart, and so on. Mandatory, obligatory aqidah. And the more you are immersed in certain environments, where you find certain doubts are being spread or issues and things like this, then it's mandatory upon you to get exposed to it. Then it's mandatory upon you to remove any doubts or to be able to refute that if you get exposed to it. And not to say, well, I'm not a scholar, then you have to learn it. Because you get yourself immersed in it. This is what happens. That's why when you expose yourself to fitan, it's not a good thing. But if it happens, then you have to protect yourself. So this is a huge subject. But just in brief, we have to work on this, whether it's for ourselves and also for others. And one of the main goals of someone seeking knowledge is first and foremost, لِيَرْفَعَ الْجَهْلَ عَنْ نَفْسِ أَوَلًا, to remove ignorance from oneself first and foremost. It's not about others, it's about our own selves. And then as to extend that benefit, because the perfect state that a person can be in is is to implement what is true and to convey that to others. So this is the perfect state that a person can be in. So, but to understand, when someone is ignorant about something, he becomes an enemy to it. When people don't know the Sunnah, they becomes enemies to the people of the Sunnah. Many of them like this. They have sincerity in their hearts, but they don't know. So that's why the matters of ilm and to spread the authentic knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and to call to what is the every Muslim should agree upon, which is the understanding of the early generations of Islam, the Salaf al-Salih, the Sahaba, Tabi'een, and Tabi'een, and the people of knowledge and so on. The second one, very briefly, is that if you add to this, add to ignorance, that the person that is inviting others to the truth, they have already enmity towards him, and they have hasad or envy that prevents them from accepting the truth. Look at who's talking. Why should I take something from that individual? This is another ignorance that which is part of ignorance. And as we heard about the issue of racism and so on, human beings, they invented the most foolish ways of separating one another based on something that is extremely foolish when you think about it. Allah gave us aql to think. What is the fault of someone, or what is the superiority of a person, that he's born in that land versus another land, that he has no choice in, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him with a color of his skin different than the color of the skin of someone else, or his eyes color is different than someone else. Isn't that extremely foolish? But this is how human beings, they separate to another, or nationalities, or cultures, or things ma anzal Allahu biha min sultan. So people create all kinds of enmity, and when this is there, people see things as foreign to them, or as if that person is not a human being. Right? So to remove that, it's also with ilm, and to challenge the way that people can think. And the Quran also full of these means, and the examples in the Quran to call people to remember that everyone is from Adam, and Adam alayhi salam from Torah. So this is a second reason, as he mentioned, that many people that they would turn away from the haqq because of. The third one, number 3, he mentioned al-ilf wal-'ada wal-marda. When someone is used to something, which is one of the also important deterrent factors that makes people turn away from the haqq. He's been raised in a certain way. This is also for the reverts that can relate to this. You've been raised in a certain way, your culture is in a certain way, which is the ways of the parents and the forefathers. إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ وَإِنَّا عَلَى آثَارِهِمْ مُقْتَدُونَ. We found our fathers and our forefathers upon something, so we will continue to be upon the same thing. One of the very difficult things, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran. People are always proud of their forefathers. Everyone on the face of earth, they're always proud of their forefathers. So this is the way of Iblis. أَوَلَوْ كَانَ أَبَاهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what if their parents and their forefathers, they were not guided, then they did not have any reason. Who said, what is that to do with the haqq? What is that? Is there an evidence that a person upon the haqq, because his forefathers were upon something, that with the smallest minimum amount of reason, it doesn't go together whatsoever. But this is the reality of human beings. So then a person should, every individual has the responsibility to be upon the haqq. And the details of that, if you're a Muslim, and you found your parents, for example, when they make salah, after they give salam, they do this. Have you guys seen this before? Right after salam, when they put their hands on their forehead. So you found that this is part of the sunnah, part of the deen. So when you make salam, you do this. Right? And they say what? It prevents what? What is it? Flying away? Makes your brain stronger when you say ya qawi or something like this. And and some they put their fingers on their eyes, ya nur, and things like this. So you think that this is part of the deen. And if someone tells you, is that from the Prophet ﷺ used to do that after the salah, he might get angry with you. This is how we found our fathers and our forefathers doing. Even though it sounds like a simple thing, but what's the principle behind it? Is that we allow ourselves to do things in the religion that the Prophet ﷺ didn't do. And I'm not talking about differences of opinions or matters of fiqh that is valid, established among the schools of thought. This is something else. This is all respect to that. But I'm talking about the innovations in the deen. Right? So When a person get to learn the deen, get to learn the sunnah, when we have the renewing the covenant between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one we worship, and the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the only one to be followed. This is in your heart, this is aqd, this is covenant. Right? If someone embraces Islam today, we talk to him about all kinds of ways to do this, or this is the aqd of al-iman, this is the covenant of al-iman. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one to be worshipped. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the only one to be followed in the absolute sense. How to go about this? This is where ilm comes in place, and this is where there's valid differences of opinions and matters of fiqh, and the madahib al-arba'a, Imam Abi Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, and Ahmad. All of that is to be honored and to be, we learn the deen not foolishly or not in a chaotic way, but rather in the ways that the ulama established it. So the point here is to remove this, I found my forefathers upon something. If it's something that is not according to the deen, then we're willing to change. We're always constantly searching for the haqq, even if it's something that is small. So also this is a huge subject, and it's mentioned in the Quran. But the issue of being used to something, many people, they don't embrace the deen of Islam, or they don't change their lifestyle because it's been for so long that they get used to something, whether it's habits, things that they like, their culture, all of these types of things. So it requires sacrifice, yes. And if a person, sacrifice and struggle with oneself, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, whoever struggle and strive in the cause of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide him. And when the heart is sincere and a person turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sincere help, it doesn't take much. We waste so much of our life sometimes. Every year, yes, inshallah, I'm going to do this, inshallah, I'm going to do this. Nothing happens. In which if a person is patient for days, months, whatever it is, after some time, then it becomes the norm. Your struggle will go to something else. We will always have to struggle and strive. But, the issue of al-'ada wal-marda, and that's why the importance of raising our children not to be acquainted and used to sins and things that is against the fitrah. You say that it's a child, what's wrong with that? It's okay if he listens to this. It's okay if he's in that environment or this environment. You get that child to get used to what is bad and what is evil. Children, if you get them used to what is good, it becomes their 'ada, it becomes their norm. So you make it easy for them when they grow up. They don't have to go through so much struggle to be away from the haram. So we have a responsibility in that, of course. So this is one, again, and it's brief. It's a huge one, it's a very important one. Number 4, it said 6. Some people, they don't accept the truth because it becomes a way against establishing and maintaining their status, their izzah, their honor and dignity, their shahawat, their desires, their means. For example, the case of Farooq. He was the king of the Romans. He knew that the Prophet ﷺ is the final messenger of Allah. And he said, if I was there by him, I would wash what's underneath his feet. He knew exactly that he's the messenger of Allah. What prevented him from accepting Islam? Farooq died as a kafir. This is well known. But why is that? Out of the fear that he would lose his kingdomship. Such a big trial for him, right? And it's not an excuse. But many people, it's because of their maybe congregation, because of their status to the people. They have many followers. And for a person to say something and then to say afterwards, I was wrong, that requires lots of courage. And this courage cannot be attained unless a person's heart is attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even we have our ai they gave the best example in this. How many examples you have in the ai of the deen? The ai, the great ai of the deen, where they would change their opinion. And they would come openly and they would admit that they were wrong. And that increased their honor. And when someone is upon this, the foolish ones would say, oh look, he's not really having well-grounded in knowledge. Because he used to say something, now he says something else. This is out of weaknesses of understanding. Actually, this is a sign of guidance. Unless a person is changing to be in a worse state. Right? Because people would say, well, someone was upon the sunnah, now he's leaving what he was upon. Yes, there is criteria to understand this. But guidance after guidance requires for the person to hold firm to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to be against the deen of Allah. So again, one's desires, one's status and things like this. Number 5, the fear of one's friends, one's ashira, one's tribe, one's countrymen, and things like this, which is also, as the previous one, Herakl also was afraid of this one, and he did not accept the deen of Islam because of that. So the fear of one's environment. And as Ibn Qayyim also rahimahullah, he said, something that can be, you can benefit from it for the rest of your life. He says, وَهَلْ آفَةُ النَّاسِ إِلَّا النَّاسِ. Isn't the al-afa is what? Al-afa is when you have a disease that becomes epidemic, right? An animal get affected by a virus or something, then it affects all the animals. So he says, وَهَلْ آفَةُ النَّاسِ. Isn't the disease of the people? The problem with human beings is what? Human beings. So they're from one another. So many people that were not living in isolated deserts, were living in very complex relationships. And people get affected by others. They don't want to be mocked at, laughed at, or physically or abused or anything of this. So that makes them turn away from even thinking or going forward to get to know the truth, because they're worried about what other human beings would do to them or say to them. And the same thing for Muslims, those who they change their names, disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just they don't want to be mocked at. Well, don't we read the Quran and to see what the Quran says about this, and how in the end of Surah Al-Mutaffifin talks about this? So to be firm, and we're not better than the messengers of Allah and the righteous ones. So this is another means, and if you go through the evidences, you will find many examples that give strength. And one of the ways to protect oneself from these evil means is to read the qasas of the Quran, the stories of the Quran, the biographies of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, of course the seerah, and the imma of this deen. And this is one of the ways to strengthen the heart. As also Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, he says that al-qasas jund min junudillah. The qasas, the stories, are one of the soldiers of Allah that affects the heart. The last one, which was mentioned earlier also, which is al-hasad, envy. When people envy one another, it's not just about envy, being envious because of some wealth or something like that. Sometimes it's religious status. Someone was ahead of you to be upon the haqq and you were not. Imagine you're inviting someone to be upon the haqq and you keep on inviting him, so he becomes ahead of you. But people sometimes they have envy. I'm the one that used to remind him. Now look at him and look at me, so start envying him. This is what happened to the Jews in Jaziratul Arab, when they used to call the Arabs to tell them and warning them there's a messenger is going to come, because before the Prophet ﷺ was sent, the humanity, the people of the book, were waiting for the messenger ﷺ. So they would talk to them every time someone would abuse them. They would say, "We warn you of a messenger will come and will fight you and this and that." So when the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him, and the Arab, they embraced the deen of Islam, the Hasad came in place. How can these people, they were nobody whatsoever, they become upon the truth and not us? So what prevented them is that al-Hasad, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that in the Quran, حَسَدًا مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. A group of them, they did not accept the truth, knowing that this is the truth, because of the envy. And Iblis, he refused to make sujood to Adam. Why? Hasad, kibra, of course, because of arrogance, and because of the hasad. Who is this creation that I'm commanded to make sujood to him? When I'm created from fire and is created from mud, as we know from the Quran. So, and this is such a disease that is very destructive to the heart. And the person should not have hasad, of course. And the hasad is a sign that the person does not believe in the qadr of Allah. And it's so evil, and that's why we have to learn it, to be warned against it, and to wish everyone what is good. And it's part of al-iman. لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. None of you shall believe, attain the perfect iman till he love for his brother what he love for his own self. And as the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, لا حسد إلا في اثنتين, there's no valid hasad. This is what they call it al-ghibta, where you wish that you would have the like of your brother without him losing what he has from this favor of Allah. And that is not permissible at all times. Some people, they think, if I see my brother has a nice car, right, or anyone has a nice car, and I don't have anything, so is it permissible for me to say, you don't have to say it, just to have it in my heart, I wish I had the like of this. without him losing it. May Allah bless it for him. You know, the hasad is, the evil one is that you get angry, that you wish that that person would lose his health, lose his offspring, lose his wealth, and so on. Of course, this is evil hasad. But for someone to say, I don't want him to lose it, but I want the like of it. The feel of it is a normal thing, right? But once you get that feel, you have to remove it from your heart. You have to struggle with yourself to remove that from your heart, because it's not permissible. It is still not permissible. But you remove it from your heart. You turn away, you look ahead, you think of the qadr of Allah, you take the means. And you can say, Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlik. Allah, I ask you from your fadl. Leave the matter to Allah. But why, when you see that from someone, you want to have the like of it? Do your thing. You don't have to look for what people have in their hands and that you want to have what they have. Just do your thing, take your means, and if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the provider, He provides for you, provide for him. But don't focus on the individuals and what they have. It's not permissible because of the hadith. La hasada illa fitnatayn. The permissible hasad, or they call it the ghibta, is in two things only. One is a man that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him ilm, give him knowledge of the deen. And he is judging among people and with his own self, with the deen of Allah, with the ilm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him. So you want to have the like of that for the sake of Allah, for the deen of Allah. And someone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala atahu malan, someone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him wealth, and he's spending it for the sake of Allah. So you would see that, and you would wish to have the same, not for your own personal pleasure, but for the goodness that comes as a result of that. And again, it's not denying that you can have wealth and all kinds of things and to enjoy the halal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted, but it's just changing some of the things in the heart. Seek whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you, but the deen is the basic things and the foundation, and everything relates to it. So again, this issue of how to make riyadatul qalb, to practice, like the same way that you go to the gym or you play sports, you were one state, you worked on yourself till you become strong, you were weak physically, you become strong physically. The heart needs to have the same thing, which you train yourself, that when you see something, what's the benefit of it? What's going to happen after 100 years from now? It's not that important for me. You turn away from it, and it doesn't mean that you don't want to have it, but you turn away from it and you focus to what is important and to strengthen one's heart, and to understand that once a person allows himself to weaken his heart, the iman becomes weak, then things wal'iyadhu billah can get worse, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from this. So these are 6 points that he mentioned that is basically means that deter people away from the haqq. We mentioned that before, but it's important to be reminded of that. And I did mention the evidences that relates to this in the Quran and the Sunnah because of the time, because each one is a subject by itself. And it's extensively discussed and mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it, inshallah, means of benefit, and to make our hearts upon the haqq, and to give us the strength and the ability to be upon the truth and to be steadfast on it till we all meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and upon Islam and upon the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. As Imam Ahmad and others, they used to make this dua when they saw the fitan and the deviations and things like this. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wa sammakum al-muslimin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called you Muslims. And the name of Islam is spacious enough for everyone, right? But it's always, when you see more deviations, then you say, Allahumma amitna al-Islam wa sunnah. Oh Allah, make us die upon al-Islam wa sunnah, the way of the Prophet ﷺ, which is al-Islam. But to get ourselves to understand the proper meaning of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu sallam wa barakatuh Muhammad wa sallam. Well, inshallah, we'll continue, inshallah, and then it took more than what I intended to take, inshallah, and then inshallah enjoy the rest, inshallah, with the Sheikh. Well, I think it's 5 minutes.